Okay. Hi. Hello, everyone. On today's session, we discuss how Indian women are the most stressed in the world and why. On the panel, we have Dr. Shefali Batra, who is a renowned senior psychiatrist and a mindfulness expert, widely recognized for her insightful TEDx talks. And on the other hand, we have Mrs. Priya Talwar from Women Listed. So I'll be handing over the session to her now. Thank you.
Hi, Dr. Shefali. I
Hi.
will, on the behalf of Women Listed, and I'm really, really thankful to you for taking out your time and effort to take this session.
No problem.
So my question is, what role do family expectation and traditional gender role plays in the stress experienced by Indian women?
Actually, the question is probably pertaining to all women in the world because in general, the glass ceiling still exists. And it's just assumed that when a woman is working, it's just an extra task. And when the man is working, 70% of men in India, in the workplace, 70% of the women say that the men are the primary breadwinners. So the woman is working just because it's an additional thing. Even when the woman says that she wants to work, oh, you'll work even but after marriage you won't work, right? Or the question is just very obvious, but after a child you won't work, right? Nobody says that to a father. Nobody says that. When you say the gender stereotypes, I mean, no one is saying that because the guy has become a father now he just won't work anymore. So of course, money is important. And if the guy ends up doing an education or taking a job that earns more money, yes, that's when he starts winning the bread. But it is held since time immemorial that the woman will watch the house. I mean, I would not deny that the women are great at watching the house, talk of management, but I don't think a man could manage a house despite all the MBAs. It's just very inherent. So genetically, we are wired, as women to care and nurture and feed. And, when someone is ill, times are changing. We have male nurses today, but a woman is supposed to be nursing, it's very inherent that the woman does that. So the question is really obvious. Your child is not well. You're going to go to work. I mean, it's like bizarre that you would think of going to work. Now, I'm not saying that we don't care about our kids, but the expectation that if your child is unwell, the man is not expected to take off from work to take care of the child. So this way, it becomes almost a rule or a stereotype or a gender bias, as we call it, that it's just understood. It's just absolutely understood, which is societally influenced. And your question is pertinent. It's not, when we say gender stereotypy, I would say it's a personal stereotype. Like the woman knows that if, I am expected to do these things. And so she internalizes the societal expectation and it kind of becomes normal for her to do it. Like I see a lot of women who are in this state, but they're uncomfortable with it. But they also know that they kind of blame themselves. Oh, it's so bad. I can't manage my child and, the household work. And when you ask, like, do you get help from your husband? No, I mean, it's not his job, but it's my job to have a job. It's my job to cook alongside and take care of the kids and take care of everyone's health. So such women that I see tend to have more of anxiety and depression and, and we're talking about stress because they feel guilty about working. They feel guilty about not being only the cook and the cleaner and the nurse. They will be the cook and the cleaner and the nurse and the doctor and all of that, but they begin to feel guilty that, I'm not a good mom because I've just had too much to do at work and, but my manager is really not listening and my manager is not understanding, but you know what? I'm ignoring my child. So this is what we mean by how do these preformed, fixed, rooted gender stereotypes really continue to impact the way women in India perceive responsibility and accountability. It's definitely an over accountability, that they're responsible for too many things. And so when things go bad, that is why the level of stress is very high.
How does the stress experienced by Indian women compare to that of women in other countries?
So in terms of, the question, if it includes, well, Indian women are more stressed. Like, this was a global survey done by Deloitte. And I think they've been doing it annually now. So there are more Indian women who report stress compared to, well, generally the East Asian women are more stressed because, culturally, whether you talk India and China and Japan and all of these countries, the role of women is more of the caretaker and the homemaker. And what they feel is the burnout. So Indian women feel more burnt out, in the sense burnout is one step even beyond stress. When it's just, I'm done, I can't do anymore. That's what you really mean by burnout. And when you say how do they compare to women world over, fewer women in India. Basically, look, everyone gets stressed. Everyone's got things happening in their lives. When everyone has a baby, they all have sleepless nights for literally 1 year of their lives. But women in India don't get that support from their employers. The woman is, it's again so much of stereotype that, oh, she's a woman, should be employer, because, then we're going to have pregnancy breaks and we're going to have, higher chance of premenstrual dysphoria or, PMS, and then you'll have to be prepared that there will be fiascos, so this lack of support from the employer is very high compared to the global average. So, like I said, about 38% of women say that they get support from employers. And globally, maybe 45 to 50% women agree that we get support from our employers. So, which again, by the way, only 50% of global women are getting support for them from their employers. And of that, which is already bad enough, I think 1 out of 2 is pretty bad. 100% women should be getting support. But of a global average of 50, India is still 38. So we're like a couple of notches below the global, because Indian women don't seem to be getting that support. I think it goes doubly beyond. It's not even just that, hey, you have to do your work. The woman, everybody's supposed to do their work. I'm a working professional. I only work. That's the most of what I do. But the point I'm trying to make here is, when you see a woman who has misperformed even slightly, okay, so there is a man who has not done this job which was allotted, and there's a woman who's not done this job which was allotted. The man will be like, what the hell, this was supposed to be done. With the woman, it's like, I was already saying we should have not employed a woman, because she's already going to have these, issues. Why the added spice on the already existent problem that, yeah, we knew this would happen. It could happen with anyone. But when it happens with a woman who is failing to perform, or I'm telling you, the moment you get the first news, child is unwell or mother-in-law is unwell, and so I have to be home, we knew all this was just going to happen. So that prejudice adds to that whole negativity, as we just started out with, talking about the bias. So if you see with women, they are, statistically, this I'm talking about statistics, that women are interrupted more in meetings. It's considering, doing a men versus women analysis, women say that we are interrupted more. So basically, it is assumed that the woman's job wasn't so important, so it's okay to interrupt her. These are the things that happen at work, and this happens more in India. In other countries, you forget whether this is a man or a woman. You just get them to do the job. You just give them the instructions and you just have your expectations in place. But being interrupted in meetings, in informal settings, most of the the out of office meetings and stuff like that, women are actually not included. They are given responsibility that they are working, but in all these alternate settings, women are excluded, and even the general informal conversation, it would be more man to man because it is assumed that the woman is gossiping, which is not always true. So again, these biases are going to impact a lot, because when you feel left out, when you feel like, why should that discrimination be? Why is it that I'm being excluded from this? Why is it that I have a different rule when something goes wrong, or something that I didn't do, or something that happened wrong? So it's like you already come in with, it's as if, if you're running a race with a broken leg, you're always going to have that little thing that it's something is broken, so I'm going to be slower. But women are not broken, but they're treated like they're broken. And so you already have a lower expectation, and you already have a disappointment prefixed before something wrong has even happened. So this is somehow more in India, because it's just assumed that it's going to, like I said, the preformed notion already gives you one notch below, and so you cannot run the race as fast. So another thing is women, people taking credit. I mentioned this in one of my YouTube videos. One of my patients had also told me that um, she was a leading executive, and she was in the boardroom, and she stood up and gave a little talk about the next year's plan, and everyone was quiet. It's okay, they just listened. And then a man stood up and gave pretty much the similar suggestions, and there was a roaring thunder. And she was just wondering, how did I say anything different? But this is just it. It is assumed that if she's saying it, either she doesn't understand it, or she's picked it from someone else, or we'll think about it. But when the man says it, it's just received very well. So strangely, this happens more in India, and I'm very glad we have a statistic to prove it. But it's very unfortunate that this is how it is. We don't have reasons, we don't have. I mean, the only reason we can think of is the bias, and why we have the bias, we don't know, because it's just going on since decades and since generations. But these are the findings. Yes.
I mean, Indian women are facing stress home front as well as the working environment, I feel. And
Yeah, I think because, like I said, expectations are there, right? When something's not okay, you've got to handle it. I mean, so much so, even when the bathroom sink isn't working at home, it's kind of more the responsibility of the woman to manage the house. So it just becomes like a double job, and that could get very stressful, because homemaking is also a full-time job. Like, I don't say that as a woman, I don't say that I don't want to do it, but it's just that, well, I'm of course an independent professional, so things are very different for me. But because of being a psychiatrist, because of being a person who's dealing with stress and anxiety and depression on an everyday basis, it's very, very evident that the issues that trouble women, look, everybody gets anxious and depressed. We have marginal, yes, more statistically, women are more depressed, more women are depressed, sorry. But the reasons for their depression or stress or anxiety are different. For men, they are more of the regular, when you look at a pathology. But in a woman, there is so much of environmental influence, which is causing her to feel that stress, and that as if literally she's being harassed. I mean, there is no open harassment, but subjugation is also a form of harassment only, so that's exactly what women have.
There are enough support system and resources in place to help Indian women cope with the stress and mental health issues.
There are, or there aren't? I don't think there are enough.
Are there enough?
Are there enough? No, there are not enough. That's what I said. What I mentioned sometime earlier, that compared to other countries, it's exactly, basically it's the support. Like I said, everybody gets stressed. You can't say that no, there's no stress. Everybody gets stressed, but the stress busters, or the ability to talk about it, to deal with it, that is very limited because the resources are not there. And I would go ahead to say that in general, mental health resources in India are poor, whether it's for males or females. So, the talking about mental health at work, or talking about stress, or, having that professional just sitting in an office who you can, of course, I'm a part of corporates, and I do wellness for employees, but how many employers are open to that? How many employers are actually offering services that, if you're stressed, go talk to someone, we have this person, and no, and the stigma attached to it, that even if by chance there is a professional, and if someone knows that, he or she went to see this professional, first question people will think, hey, is this confidential? Hey, is it going to affect my appraisal? It's going to affect my bonus. So people say we'd rather not talk about it. So point number one, availability of help for women is less. Point number two, the stigma attached is so high. Openly, when a woman is upset or looking sad, I have actually noticed, because I deal with male and female patients and clients who come to me, but I see them say it so openly. Yeah, it must be her time of the month, so we'll just have to deal with her a little sensitively. Yes, it is true. We do get a time of the month. And what is wrong with that? It just is what it is, right? So why do women have to be put down for it? If you think that a woman gets more emotional during a monthly period, she does. And it's your job to deal with it. It's the man's job to deal with it, because this is just how she was designed. It wasn't even choice. That being said, I am not advocating that everybody should get premenstrual syndrome, and that's not what I'm saying. But the fact that women are wired differently, and they do face certain constraints, and there is just so much that they have to deal with, so I think that support is lacking in India, in the workplace. So that could really affect the mental health negatively, and push women into feeling more anxiety and depression and stress. So if there was more support, if there was more openness in discussion, if there was more mental health advocacy going on, particularly for women, I think that would make a very big difference. Like, those services are very, very inadequate. So that makes a very big impact on the mental health.
So, what coping mechanism do Indian women commonly employ to manage stress, and how effective are
So there are, seeing a couple of questions, you're noticing the questions, right? Yeah, there are questions coming in, so I was just reading. Okay. What strategies should we use? Or I think, what strategies are women using? I can't talk for all women. There are some very emotionally intelligent and mature women out there who know how to balance things and take care of their emotions. And I do see a lot of women who see me in professional practice. And as a psychiatrist, I don't just deal with deep, dark mental health issues. Like, what I deal majoritarily with is stress. Stress of their relationship, stress of the child, stress of work, and in-law stress, and all of that. How often do you have a man coming in with in-law stress? It's just something inherent that a woman has to deal with. I'm not against joint families, but I'm just saying that there is a lot that the woman has to endure. So in general, if you look at the styles of coping, it's called ways of coping, actually, WOC. So the mature way is to talk about things and to let it out and to make meaning of your feelings. That's actually what the cognitive analysis and cognitive therapy is. That's what I primarily do. But there are two methods. There is the emotion focused coping, and then there is the problem focused coping. So in emotion focused, we're just focusing on the emotions. Oh, I feel so bad that my manager treated me this way, and oh, work is just miserable, and oh, my family doesn't understand, and oh, I'm just feeling like I'm stuck. All these statements that the woman makes, or any person makes, is just showing that something is not okay, but it's not showing how to make it okay. right? So you're just venting, you're complaining, you're gossiping, you're talking to your friend, or you're calling your friend up at work who says, yeah, I'm facing the same thing. And then that could probably enhance the negative feeling. And I also have a bad boss. Oh, you also have a bad manager. I also have a bad manager, how they are. And we go on and on and on sometimes, I say we as women. But that is called emotion focused coping, where you're not really getting an answer to your problem. Now, the problem focused coping is, again, we can use that to pinpoint what is the real problem happening here and what is the solution that is needed. So that is the logical method, get to the root of it and talk to, like, I've encouraged a lot of 26, 27 year old. So one another big finding, the young women in India, the younger women employees in corporates, they are very open to seeking support. So I see a large number of these 25, 26 year olds, just joined E&Y, just joined Deloitte, just joined, these leading law firms in the country. I see a lot of those women coming up for support. And I've seen that they also seek help, and they've taken a lot of letters from me stating that they're stressed and requesting for time out and stuff like that. That part is very, very significant, and this is exactly what we've seen even in the survey, that more Indian younger women are becoming open to the idea of mental health, which means this is called problem focused coping, that I have a problem, doc, and I need to solve it. So as this is rising, it's seeming very positive. And this finding was significant that more Indian women are opening up to it. So that was very promising and very I'm proud that that the wake of mental health, as I would like to call it, that people are waking up to the idea of mental health and realizing that I'm not okay and I need to be okay. See, the first statement I would want women, when they are trying to cope with the problem, it's okay to not be okay. The first thing that puts you down is, oh my God, I'm not okay. And a woman will only blame, yeah, it's my monthly period. My entire work gets disrupted during that time. That blame, that guilt, all of that. It's okay to not be okay. Now the new propaganda is on the man period. Men also get emotional, and so now there's a man period also. So there's a man period and a woman period and all sorts of periods, and some people are lifelong on a period only. So I don't think we should use that as much as a escape. But the point is problem focused coping, that I understand there is a problem. I understand that I'm not okay. I understand that it is okay to not be okay. And I know that there is help, so I can get okay. Let me seek help. Now, I'm not saying everybody has to come and see a professional, but yes, why not? People do it abroad. It's almost nearly mandatory. Everyone, the way they go to the gym for a physical workout, they say, hey, I have my weekly session with my coach or my therapist or my shrink, as they call it abroad. And so, yeah, and people like, hey, oh, you have your appointment on Wednesday. I have my therapist appointment on the same time on the evening. Okay, we'll meet for dinner after that. It's a thing you do. The way you work out, the way you go for a walk, the way you go to do your hair, the same way you go meet a professional to talk about how you feel. So when we start using those strategies, we will be minimizing our stigma. And like I said, there is nothing wrong in having a problem. The problem is in hiding the fact that you have a problem. And that when you bury it, then you get multiple layers of the problem. And that's when you have the volcano. And then one fine day it's going to erupt. So that is what we need to change. And like I said, in this domain, this particular question, younger women are getting open to the idea, which is very, very promising, particularly in India. And the more of the 30 plus and 35 plus ages are facing more and more stress because they're having the sort of 35, 40, nowadays women are having children later on in life. So that's when the kids are also teenagers and they're getting into more and more emotional turmoil, and colleges and education and admissions and things like that. So there is a lot of stress going on in the women 35 to 40 onwards. And the way out is, better way of coping is to talk about it. The better way of coping is to seek help for it. Talk to a friend, talk to a family member, if they're receptive enough, and then seek professional help. So that would be a mature way of coping.
Yeah, very true. Very true. I think there are so many questions there.
Sure. You want to go over some of the questions people have asked? Be
Yeah.
nice to answer.
एक सेकंड मैं कर रहा हूँ मैं संगीता को अनम्यूट कर रहा हूँ
Hi everyone.
Hi,
So
Sangeeta.
basically, yeah, hi. Dr. Batra, so what it is like there are bosses, it could be male or female, I've handled both. But now the way they bully you and the way, you take, I'm a writer. So like you go and you give your draft or something, and every time there's criticism. So now it has come to like, I've been in the profession for so many years, but still I'm scared to take it to them. Even when I'm working online during COVID, I've been like, so I'm a little jittery because I know it's going to be trashed or something. So I'm not at peace when I'm writing, because when I'm writing, it's not the writing, how that other person will view is happening. So this has impacted me so much, like even as, a mother or a wife or everything, whatever I do, that
Starting to doubt yourself.
in, and I've become very jittery. I don't know how to deal with it. And as I'm aging, I'm becoming more of it. So it's like you mentioned about that toilet seat getting cleaned, or, that anxiety, like it is your responsibility. Now, as you age, the expectations are so much, oh, leave it to her, leave it to her. And now I am like a ball of anxious person, and I'm really dealing with it. There are times when I'm like nearly 45 and I'm break into sweat at times, just thinking about I need to function as whatever my work is and as a family person. My kids are growing up and they don't see me as a strong person. They see, oh, what's happening? She's going to be, all her anxiety is going to like trample all over the house now. So this
No,
is,
it really seems like, Sangeeta, I mean, there is definitely very visible clinical anxiety happening here. And as you mentioned, that self-doubt seems to be pretty strong. Like you've just, what happens is when you're put down in one domain, what we have is, it's called generalization of your doubt. Now, if someone at work is repeatedly pinpointing that you're doing something wrong, you'll obviously begin doubting your writing capacity, for example. I mean, I just published a book actually, and it's a good book. I don't have it right now. I'll show it to you. It's called "Why Do I Feel So Sad?" Now, since you mentioned writing, well, I was getting a ton of comments even from my editors. Of course, all in good faith because it's a very good publishing house. But you always tend to doubt, hey, do I even know how to write? Like, look at the way people are giving me feedback. But in my case, it was always given with a very right tone and a very right method of communication. Now, what it sounds like is because of maybe the hierarchy or the way it is at your workplace, it's seeming that the criticism is seeming to be slightly destructive instead of constructive. Now, there are two things. One is the way the criticism is presented, and the other one is the way it is received by you, the feedback. So I don't know you very well. If we're talking in an individual session, anyways, I am responding like, I'm talking just to you. Of course, we're talking to everyone. So I think there are two things, when you're getting that kind of feedback, which is leading you to doubt yourself. I would say, first point, look for the validity of the feedback that you're getting. Like whatever they said, forget how they said it. For a moment, forget how they said it. I wish they said it better. But point number one, is it valid? Like if they pinpointed this particular error, is it really an error? So that's the first thing, because you have to be clean before you say that, hey, something was said to me inappropriately. I repeat, there is the feedback which somebody gives you, and there is the way they give you the feedback. So point number one, was the feedback valid? Point number two, like for example, I'll give you this very good example of one of my patients. She works in Ernst & Young. So that young, very proactive about mental health, and she says, my manager didn't talk to me nicely. I'm very upset today. I didn't get a good appraisal. I said, was he rude? She said, no, it wasn't rude, but he said I wasn't good enough. I said, okay, were you good enough? I mean, I did fumble and I did make mistakes. And, she said I missed a zero in one of the transactions. I said, there's a lot of difference between 0.4 million and 4 million. So you understand that it was a problem. She said, yeah. But then the way it was told to me that, I need to be careful and this is no good. I said, yeah, because 0.4 and 4 million are very different. But because she was generally so scared and low on confidence and worried that I won't get a raise and worried that I won't grow, she started getting anxious and started doubting herself consistently. Now, here I'm not even getting into whether the manager was good or not. In your case, you're giving me that history right now that the managers, your bosses seem to be a little more punitive and seem to be a little more demanding, impatient, as you said.
Perfectionist.
So perfection. Now, I would not say that we don't want perfection. Of course, we want perfection. So I undoubtedly we like to be perfect at what we do, and an expectation of that perfection is kind of valid, but so it's a pretty gray area. I can't totally answer your question, but I would want you to look into what's the validity of what they're giving you, the feedback. Second, how are you receiving it? Based on how you're receiving it, you're going to start doubting yourself. But if the work already needs to be better, then why don't we just get better? Versus if they're being very disrespectful about it and you're beginning to challenge your basic capacity that I am actually no good, then I would ask you to revisit not the boss, but your attitude towards the boss. That also could be. And once that spills over, then soon you'll start saying, I probably am not even cooking enough, good enough, or I'm probably not taking enough care of my kids, or I'm not doing right by my partner. And because you truly are spending more time at work because you don't want to be put down at work, so you're putting in more time and the stress is more. And that's what we mean by stress. If you had some source at work, or if you had some way to even let the boss know at work that the way you're communicating this to me is getting me very anxious. I used to work in a medical company also, where the representatives had to talk about a product. And I could see so many of them so nervous and jittery. I mean, males and females both. But the idea is, in general, I think at the workplace, we need a little more respect regarding the mental wellness and regarding the impact that our words have on others. So I would suggest first look back at yourself. Don't doubt yourself if there's nothing worthy of doubt. As a critic or an editor, someone is going to be giving you feedback. So I would say take it constructively. But if, in your opinion, in your observation and your experience and your analysis, this is definitely disrespectful, this is definitely challenging my integrity, then I think you should speak up about it, have a one-on-one conversation, respectful one, and say that, I absolutely appreciate your feedback and it helps me get better, but somehow it's causing me to feel stressed and that's interfering with my performance and I want to do better. So I think openness and communication is very important. The more you bottle up within, the more you're going to have an outburst at some point.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much for your time. Yeah, I'll think about it. It's a receiving part I need to work on. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Ma'am, we have another question from Cynthia Nazing. That is,
Okay.
stressed men and stressed female, who suffer more generally and why? Any difference due to biological difference or upbringing difference? Am I meeting?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. As I told you, we already discussed this as soon as we started. We opened the talk that women are that there's a very inherent expectation. I mean, the moment, which starting from the times in the villages, in the farms, if you have a son versus you have a daughter, if you had a son, he would be stronger and he would pull the plow and he would do better farming, So it is always understood that the man is going to contribute more, the man is going to earn more. And when you grow up with that kind of prejudice, it's already harder for the woman to prove herself. And so when she is stressed, she begins to think that, like how Sangeeta mentioned, I mean, she's wondering if she's good enough. because maybe the way the feedback is given or the way we are expected to believe that you're supposed to do a good job. And if you didn't, then there is something very, very deeply wrong with you. I mean, of course, something is wrong for men as well as women who don't do a good job. But the question, that Cynthia asked, the whole point here is that if something goes wrong, why do you think that it's bad? Why do you think that you're no good? Maybe there's an element of black and white thinking happening there, that we're just going all or none. Because if I wasn't the best, it means I was the worst. Or another defense that we use often is catastrophic thinking, that, oh, this is the end, and they're going to throw me out, and that stress also rises. So I think that it's a lot to do with the way communication occurs at work and the way it's sort of a self-narrative, which is also a form of communication, that if you goof up, what do you say to yourself? And if you see other female employees, I think even women in power need to empower more women. It's that there is a lot of prejudice for women by women. You will have a woman also putting down another woman, a woman boss. I mean, if you had a good woman boss, you could make a tremendous difference in an entire organization. But if you have a woman boss who is also prejudiced, then I think it just wipes out the culture. So I think we need to let go of our own prejudices also, that women are more emotional and incapable and not good enough. That is very important.
Anjali, is there any other questions?
Anyone in the audience would want to give some tips to someone else, based on a personal experience, or would anyone want to share? Vandana, Evelina. Or can I ask you all a question? Anyone could, raise their hand or put in a note. Have you all experienced any discrimination at work, like openly? Have you all had any personal experience, or a friend or someone who faced stress at the workplace? Do you think that? What is the question from Cynthia? Priya, can you see Cynthia's question?
Do you think that hard gym built physique make any difference in resisting stress? Does it build endurance?
Working out, I mean, of course, you have the capacity to clobber up somebody and that gives you confidence. But generally, a workout is very good for optimal, not just physical health, but also for your mental health and your resilience. Because point number one, yes, if you're physically strong, you feel good that you can deal with things. But like I said, it's not about punching somebody. Point number two, you feel basically the endorphins and the positivity chemicals that are released when you're working out. They definitely make you feel good. So if you're feeling low and sad and out, and if you go for a workout, you will be releasing adrenaline, and so you will be happier. And it also, of course, gives you a better sleep, and it makes you feel good about your body if you're fit. So there are multiple ways in which a workout does help you. So absolutely, I would say if it works quite ironically in the opposite way, right? When you have too much to do at work, I would say, you can't get a solution and you're just sitting in front of your laptop and staring at the screen. I would say stand up and do a few stretches. Stand up and just balance on one leg, or you do the bow posture, which you're balancing on one leg, holding the hand behind, holding your foot with your hand behind. When you take those teeny tiny breaks, when you're already very overworked and stressed, those teeny breaks are not wasting your time. Those teeny breaks are rejuvenating you so much that your efficiency will triplicate. And so you will actually get things done in 1/3 the time by just taking that 5-minute break. So people say, no, I can't take a break. So you will waste the next 4 hours, but you won't feel any better. And if you take that little 5-minute break and just do some stretches, and you'll just rejuvenate yourself completely. So you don't have to do a hardcore workout all the time, but even teeny tiny mental workouts. Like, for example, I made these little audios, just when you take a break from work, like it's on my website or on my Spotify channel, wherein you're just taking these mini breaks, like thought reframing. So I just made an audio on that. Now that is your mental workout. If you just listen to that audio on thought reframing, and then you start thinking and analyzing that your negative thought is not actually appropriate and you shouldn't be thinking this way, then suddenly your world changes. So these little mental workouts are also very useful, because your physical workout as well as your deep breathing exercises are going to be actually your mental workout, and they'll keep your brain free of stress and more resilient.
Very true.
We have another question from Shan.
Okay.
Shell, can you unmute yourself? And
Vandana. Who's the question from?
we have another question from Vandana.
Yeah, I saw it from Vandana. Yeah, Vandana, it's a little lower volume, but
Shell, you can speak.
Yeah, can you hear me?
yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, so I just wanted to know that, as opposed to men, for women, is stress tied more to, self-worth, um, the need to please those around them, to seek validation.
Absolutely.
Everything.
Yes, absolutely. That's where I say inherently. So, it's like the starting line in the race. I feel women are already starting lower out. So it is just assumed that they're not good enough. And so they have to keep putting in that extra work. It's this gender inequality at the workplace has always existed. So because it is assumed that I am not good enough, as in because a woman assumes that she's not good enough, her performance is always slightly that jittery and slightly unsure. And so the foot that is put forward is not always the best foot forward. And it becomes a vicious cycle. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy that I think I'm not good enough. And then I get more jittery and nervous. And then I underperform. And I have proved to myself that I wasn't good enough. All I need is that one, supportive hand on my back, or that one acknowledging stroke on my back, even when I make a small move, that, hey, you're good. And that is how people will come out and shine. But I think that inherent belief that if I mess up, it's going to be a really big mess up. It's like a child in a school. If the child is afraid that if I don't do well in the exam, I'll be really thrashed by my parents. There are still a lot of punitive parents who make their kids study like that. But if you think that your parents will thrash you, and that is why you've got to do well in your exam, you have already added stress. That performance pressure is already going to push you down, versus the kid who says, I'll do my best, we'll see, I'll do my best and forget the rest. That kid ends up performing better.
It's more about internalization, like women internalize.
Yeah, because you've internalized that if and then, if this happens, then, like, if I'm not good enough at this, then I will think this way. So like I said, we get stuck in that loop of the self-fulfilling prophecy, which is very important to break. Are we there?
Shell, I hope you got the answer for your question.
Yeah, thanks.
We have another question from Vandana Saxena.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Shefali. There's a lot of background sound here because of the Ganpati. So I've
No,
requested
we are
the
good. We
co-host.
can't hear it.
Oh, okay, wonderful. See, what I had a point here. I had an observation here. uh, it's not, as as we are discussing the topic about the Indian women being more stressed out. One rightly pointed out during the conversation that our upbringing and the way our mindset, we always want to be perfect. We always want, that we try to put our best foot ahead and want to perform very well and want to be sincere to our work. That is how, we have been brought up. But what happens is that when you are going out, like I have experienced this personally with so much of experience and, with my expertise in the education industry, sometimes, when you are working with some partners who are really, really very toxic and then, it demotivates you. You are unnecessarily put into stress when you find, your plan, whatever you have planned is being executed well, and everything is going on well. You are a great team player, but suddenly your boss, will point out something which actually is not required, and then, you try to step back. And when you are trying to step back, you create one stress for yourself only, and then you lose that confidence. Your self esteem becomes low, and unnecessarily, you have to go through this process. And I'm sure what I am saying, many of us will echo my sentiments, that it's like female versus female.
Hmm.
Many a times it has
No,
happened.
because it is, like I said, it is uh, it's a self stigma that women impose on themselves, and generate this whole self-fulfilling prophecy that if I am not performing to my
Performing.
fullest,
Right.
you already put yourself that, yeah, I am bad, because
Yeah.
you label yourself that I am, this is mentioned in my book also. The word like, there's a difference between the noun and the verb. Like, instead of saying I am a failure, what you need to say is I failed at this, but I am
Yeah.
trying and I am great at many other things, versus putting the tag on your forehead that I am a failure or I am a loser,
Mm,
because that
mm,
tag,
mm,
maybe, I don't know if I just wish, like, more and more, like I said, no, I work for a couple of corporates, and I really admire those managements that they really support the wellness initiatives. I think communication is very important.
you're very right.
It's
Sometimes I feel, that like an employee or a player thinks, why can't the management think like that? Why can't the people, in higher authorities think the way an employee
I
think
think,
that,
people are getting more like focused on outcomes and not about people, but they need to understand that if people are happy, the outcomes will already be amazing. So you can't be a Hitler and demand a great outcome, because then you're only working with fear. And that's not a good organization. And of course, organizations are made of people, and you as an individual, as you said, you're working in a team, you're trying to be a team player, but there's some toxicity. We call it toxicity.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
it's a documented word. It's called toxicity. So
yes,
who is a toxic boss? Who is a toxic
yeah,
coworker?
yeah,
Those who are belittling, who are demeaning, who are threatening,
correct, correct,
are sort of breaking the morale
yeah,
in the team.
yeah,
And they are
yeah,
adding more stress to you than actually getting you de-stressed and making you work better. If someone says
yeah,
that, hey, listen, you didn't perform well, you know what? Just go home and better sleep well tonight, and we'll talk about this tomorrow. And then one day
right,
that you sleep well, your performance will actually improve. But how many bosses tell you that this report that you prepared wasn't good? You know what? Sleep well today and then prepare the report tomorrow. No one says
correct,
that. No
correct,
one at all says that you didn't prepare this report. You better give up on your sleep and better do it right till you get it right. But the more you keep giving up on your sleep, see, I'm not saying that someone's going to really tell you to sleep or not sleep, but that receptivity has to be there in people. I've had people approach me for corporate wellness programs, and You give them a budget, you discuss what you're going to, like people are like, oh, 3-day program on stress management, 3 days you're going to talk about stress. I said, yeah, I don't think that's enough, because I would really want to teach people about what stress is, and signs and symptoms, and do interactive activities, and then do breathing exercises, and do team building exercises, and all of that. So I said, yeah, we'll do a 3-day workshop on stress management. And then she says, you know what, I mean, given a choice, if we had to do a 3-day workshop on a new programming skill versus stress management, you know what, I think we'd choose programming. So because that seems to be affecting their profit line very directly, so they think, but I'm not choosing either or. We have to have the IQ component and the EQ component. Both are important, but you can't just keep focusing on the software skills and say that, hey, stress management is that important, and it's not going to improve our employee performance. At least the programming will add a skill. I said, no, in fact, it's the other way around. Your underperforming employees will also do better when they manage their stress better. But people don't acknowledge that. They don't appreciate that. They don't see a direct curve, going up with less stressed employees. They just think we need to push more and more. Let's raise the working hours. Let's say make everybody work just 15 minutes more. If you have 100 employees and if everyone's working 15 minutes more, it doesn't sound like too much, that gives you 1150 more minutes of work. But
very
you
true.
made
Very
all the
true.
employees work 15 minutes less, and that 15 minutes will probably be a compulsory drill for everyone's going to do some exercise or stretching on their desk together. Like a lot of schools have a PA system, and you make an announcement. Like, why can't we have that this is the stress busting hour? We are having these relaxation audios playing throughout the room. You sit back and you just fold your hands and just do some breathing. No, we don't do that. Just 15 minutes. What 50 to do? 5 minutes. Just set up these small relaxation zones.
Rooms,
For example, just have a little pod and just go put a headphone, and for 5 minutes do a relaxation exercise. If your mind isn't working, you will just go and you will just be able to do it just right. But no one's willing to offer you that. They're only here to tell you you're useless, you're not good enough. You
I
don't
think
even
the charity begins at home. I think what you pointed out, it's very valid, and I think, at least for myself, I think this exercise I can do it at home also. I can have a 15-minute or 10-minute me time, because
it's called the Pomodoro. It's called the Pomodoro technique, right? In Pomodoro means tomato. I don't know if you remember those kitchen timers we used to have, the tomato shaped time.
Yes.
So it would, you would turn it and it would go tick, 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 the 30-minute timer. So in Pomodoro technique, essentially, you do 25 minutes of work and 5 minutes break.
Correct.
And in those 25 minutes of committed work, you will not pee, you will not drink water also, because it's just 25 minutes. Hopefully before the 25 minutes, you would have had water if you were thirsty. And if by chance in the 10th minute, you start feeling thirsty, you only have to wait 15 more minutes. It's just a way of regularizing your routine. So in the Pomodoro technique, you kind of, because it's a round figure, you pick 25 minutes of work, 5 minutes of play. 25 minutes of work, 5 minutes of play. I teach it to kids, I teach it to corporates, the same technique. That do 25 minutes of focus study, take a 5 minutes. So this way you will keep rejuvenating yourself. And so we don't need a timer, we have a phone. So you just kind of put a sort of an alarm of 25 minutes and then keep your break time of 5 minutes and do whatever you want. You want to watch YouTube videos, watch 5 minutes of YouTube videos or Instagram reels or whatever you want to do, or do your stretches or do 20 push-ups in those 5 minutes. You will be rejuvenating yourself, and you're not allowed to extend 25 minutes. You cannot work the next 5 minutes, and then 5 minutes of your break. Of course, then you have to get back to work. If you start following this Pomodoro technique, you'll notice a lot of change and a lot of discipline coming into life.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think it was great talking to you, and thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
We have another question from Anuradha Kapil.
Hello, Shefali ma'am.
Hi, Anuradha.
My question is like related to insecurities among women. So, being a single girl child, the expectation is from in-laws' houses, from parent house, and from jobs. So these type of insecurities among women or a child or a girl child leads to sometimes anxiety. So how to deal with these type of problem?
See, again, like I answered this some time ago, when someone has expectations of you and you personally feel that you're not able to fulfill them. So there are two things. Point number one, was the expectation reasonable and valid? And point number two, are you doing to the best of your capacity? Right? It's like if your foot is broken, I can't expect you to run a marathon. But if your foot is not broken, can I expect you to run faster? So always first ask yourself, am I doing whatever I am to the best of my capacity? And if you say, no, I know I could be doing better, then try and get better. See, the feedback coming from outside is like, it could be, imagine you're on a railway station, there is just a lot of noise. Even if the direction, what the announcement is important, but it still is noisy. I'm trying to give that analogy because the announcement is very important. You need that guidance. It's just that sometimes it's too loud and it's too irritating, but it's still important. So feedback, whether it is from parents, it is from in-laws, again, I'm trying to say they're not always bad. So if parents have certain expectations, in-laws have expectations, husband has expectations, yes, kids have expectations, work has expectations, everybody goes through it. Expectations aren't the problem. You're great, you were born to be great, so why can't you be great, would be my question. Why can't you actually balance everything? So that's where your work life balance, I think, plays a big role. Because if you get too engrossed only in your work, you're not giving time to your kids at all. See, I am totally pro feminism, and I'm saying that you've got to work hard and you've got to do everything. That's your choice. I'm not saying it's your job to do everything. You're free to do what you want. But if you have a husband who says that, oh, I want an earning wife, and he's not willing to contribute to the kitchen, then I would say that equality is also important. So when the demands from parents, from in-laws, from work, I would first ask you, are the demands rational? Are the demands reasonable? If they are reasonable, and if you think you're falling short somewhere, then, like I said, even seeking professional help, or even like I work with a lot of women, just guiding them on how to manage their lifestyle, which includes a lot of physical wellness, good diet, good time management. Life management is another synonym for time management. More than half the time, our problem only is that we don't have time. We want to exercise, but we don't have time, right? We want to be cooking great food and we want to be helping out, but maybe we're just muddling up the timing and not doing it right. So I think before you think that, the demands that everyone's making is unreasonable, first check what are the demands. If it's unreasonable, good communication skills, being assertive, letting people know. And if they are unreasonable, if they are reasonable, then I think look back, do some introspection and see where you could do better. Because you want good relationships. There is no all or none. It's never all work and forget the kids and forget the husband and forget the in-laws and the parents. Or it's never like only focus on the parents and then ignore the in-laws and the husband. That's where that management of your time and resources is very important. So I think when you do that, you'd probably do way better.
So how to focus and work on a work-life balance, because something is left, or
Yeah, so
somewhere
first
we found
you've got
ourselves as a lost person.
exactly. So when you're feeling lost, you need direction. And so you need to understand what you're like. For example, look, I don't have kids. So in my time management schedule, I don't have to shell out time for kids. But of course, I have a lot of family and nephews and nieces, and so that it's just that we need to shell out time for that. So I think really when you say what is work life balance is deciding for yourself what I want in life. I want to be meditating 10 minutes a day. I want to be working out 35 minutes a day. I want to be doing, I would say not even day. You could say I want to work out about 4 hours a week. Then you divide it in your days. Obviously don't do 4 hours in one day, but do 1 hour, 4 days, or you do 45 minutes or whatever. But if you want to exercise 3 hours a week, you want to meditate 1 hour a week. So spread out your time. You want to be cooking. We do meal prep. You don't have to cook every single day, but you could plan out your cooking and then, keep a cooking day for yourself, or reading day. You got to be reading your book. So to balance work and life, first you decide what your life includes and you decide what your work demands are. And if you are in a job which is demanding 12 to 15 hours of work a day, I think like you have to either become more efficient or, we have a next session. We have to become more efficient and you've got to change something. So I think it's a lot of planning. When you want to balance your work and life, you got to plan it well and then you can get it done.
Thank you so much. It's lovely talking to you.
Thank you. So yeah, I think we are 5 p.m. So if you have any more queries, you could always drop in an email or, but I do sincerely recommend reading the book. My book is called, it's called Why Do I Feel So Sad? I just wish I had it here to show you a copy. It's called Why Do I Feel So Sad? It's not really for someone who's sad or depressed, but it's teaching you a lot of emotion management. It's teaching you how your thought process can get twisted and your expectations from yourself and the world could get distorted. So I recommend you do get it. It's on Amazon worldwide. It's called Why Do I Feel So Sad?
Very nice. Good to hear that. And I think each one of us should buy the book, to get more enlightenment regarding the stress management.
Great.
Thank you, Dr. Shefali.
Thanks, everyone.
I just share a book link, Amazon.
Okay. Thanks, Rohan.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
See you. Most welcome.